Carol Leith. I am the editor of Plaid for Women. I have worked for Plaid since 2019, and I've also been homeschooling my three boys, now two. One is an adult, graduated and is about to graduate from college. But just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. And as we move into the new year, it is the perfect time to focus on cultivating a robust mindset and the cornerstone of both personal and professional success. So before we get into the discussion topic, let me tell you about Plaid for Women. Plaid envisions a world where women are ever increasing in power and connection. And we do that in four ways. We create safe spaces for collaborative conversations that inspire and empower. You can join us for a lunch in South Arlington on the first Wednesday or in downtown Fort Worth on the second Tuesday of the month. And we also produce online seminars to educate and inform. We even push the envelope a little, like this one that you're attending right now. We write and publish blogs to uplift and encourage. You can find those at plaidforwomen.com. And we also give to global and local organizations who empower women. So now that you know a little more about Plaid, we'll get back to the topic at hand. A strong mindset is not just about being positive. It's about being resilient and prepared. It's about embracing challenges, adapting to change, and seeing opportunities in obstacles. So during this discussion, we will explore practical strategies to build mental toughness, enhance self-awareness, and stay committed to our growth. We have a great panel of women today, so let me introduce them to you. We have Nikki Spears. She is a former school principal, and she now travels the country helping educators embrace a healthy, vibrant, and inspirational mindset. We have Gail White. She is retired from the insurance industry and set out to help women live healthier and wealthier lives. She understands the stranglehold a poverty mindset can have on us. And we have Michelle Gooch. She is our very own managing director of Plaid for Women and a sought-after empowerment coach. Michelle understands that a strong mindset isn't something we're born with. It's something we build, refine, and nurture over time. So I thank you all for being here today. It's a Fortify Your Mindset panel discussion, and we can get right into the first question. So Gail, I want to start with you. I hear you like to define things before we talk about them. So that's a great idea. So how do you define a strong mindset, and what does it look like in action?
Well, thank you so much, Carol. And hello to everyone. This is very exciting to talk about mindset. I would begin by saying that mindset is exactly what the word implies. It is the set of the mind. And I like to keep things very simple, but basically, and the experts will tell us that all of the experiences of our life sort of cause the mind to set. And we will then be conditioned to follow whatever the set of that mind is until we decide to change it. When I decided to think about what a strong mindset is, one word came to my mind, and I really want to encourage everybody, what's the one word that comes to your mind? Think about it for a second. But the word that came to my mind is that a strong mindset is useful. It gets me where I want to go. It is useful right now in the present because it gives me something to do. It gives me hope. It gives me a strategy. It gives me all those things I need because action ultimately happens in the present. You cannot act in the future. You only act in the present. So a strong mindset is useful in the present, but it also looks out to future plans and future goals and things that, where I'm going. So it's about where I am and where I'm going. And a strong mindset gives me a clear path to get me there. That's how I would define it.
Thank you. That's really
now, the second part, I guess, was what does it look like in action? And action simply means it gives me a step to take, even if it's a baby step to take. What it looks like in action for me always boils down to learning. And maybe it's because my background, I always wanted to teach, and then I became a training director. But to me, it's all about learning. And so the action is something I do to learn what I'm going to need to take that next step. And that to me is what a strong mindset looks like in action.
I love that baby step because it's not intimidating. It's something small that we can all do very simply today. It's great.
Absolutely.
Nikki, can you share a time when you consciously shifted your mindset and what impact that had on your actions?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Gail. That was wonderful. I love setting the definition of whatever we're talking about so we all are on the same page. I think about 15 years ago, it was that I applied for, it may have been longer than that, but that I applied for my first assistant principal job. I had been teaching for several years, and my goal was to initially become a school principal. However, we have to take that step of becoming an assistant first. So I was really excited about that. And I applied for a position and had the interview, and I studied my butt off for that interview. I went in there and it was awesome. I killed the interview. The panel, they were all impressed. They were so impressed. And the principal even walked me to the door. So I knew I had the job. So when I walked in my house and turned on my computer, I had that, that letter you get, that email you get that says, thank you so much for interviewing with us. Although we enjoyed your skills and experiences, we've decided to go with another candidate. I was like, what? I was devastated. I just deleted the email, but it was something in me that felt like something else could happen. So I was telling myself, don't give up. This could lead to another opportunity. I know they liked you. So I kind of talked and coached myself up. I think about 2 or 3 days later, I received a call from the superintendent's office asking me to come in. And I'm like, oh, what is this about? Did they realize they did something wrong? Did I do something wrong? But I was so afraid to ask why. I didn't ask anything. And I just position myself to say, okay, I may be I'm going to treat this as an interview. So I go in, and the superintendent and I exchanged some small talk like weather and all of that. And then he explained that they had selected a person for the position. However, they had more students this year than they thought they would have. So they asked, so I was the second person to be selected, and he wanted to know if I was ready to be that assistant principal because they didn't need one, but they needed two. And I found that has happened to me a lot in my life where I would shift my focus to still hang on to this dream of whatever that is. And it may be that I get the thing I was going for or something greater. And so I chose that example uh, because it was the shortest one I could share today within 5 minutes.
All right, Gail, what about you? Can you share a time when you consciously shifted your mindset and what impact that had on your actions?
Yes, I can. And I went all the way back to age 13. It's the first time I noticed that, well, looking back on it, I had a bad mindset over something very simple. I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I had to do the dishes every single night for 7 people. And I didn't like that. I didn't think it was fair. It cut into my playtime. My passion was to go outside and play softball with my friends. But looking back on what I did then, I had a victim mentality. For me, nobody else has to do dishes. I shouldn't have to do all the dishes every night. And I went on and on and on with this victim thing. And then one day, and I think a lot of mindset is maturity. I kind of grew up a little bit and said, wait a minute, I'm complaining, I'm dragging my feet. I am basically cutting into my own playtime. I am undermining what I really want. And then, and this was brilliant, I thought, but I don't even want things to be fair. I just want more playtime. So what can I do to shift my mindset and get more playtime? And it became, you can get super efficient at doing these dishes. You can get out of here instead of it taking you 30 minutes or 40 minutes because you're dragging your feet and complaining. I start timing myself. I got it down to exactly 12 minutes, start to finish. And I came up with an acronym for it as I was thinking, you know, we've got the Department of Governmental Efficiency. Here's mine. I became the master of dishwashing efficiency. And that has carried through, but not just with dishwashing. It became for me, I want to make sure I don't step into feeling that victim thing, that someone owes me, that it's someone else's fault, and that there's nothing I can do about it. I want to make sure I always flip from victim to victor. That's me.
Nice. I love those. Both those stories are something so simple in your mind just to change how you're looking at a situation. And it doesn't change anything outside of it, just who you are, how you see it. I love that. Michelle, what practices have been most instrumental in helping you build a strong and resilient mindset?
Thanks, Carol, for moderating this. Thank you, ladies, for being here. I promise I'm going to answer that question about practices and habits, but of course I'm going to tell a story first because I have to follow suit what everybody else has done. In my early 20s, I made a decision that would forever change the trajectory of my life. And I literally put myself in a hostile environment. Now, I grew up in a home that was all puppies and rainbows. So I had no reference, no preparation for hostility. But I was fully committed to this decision and I didn't see a way out. So it was a kind of situation that a lot of people would consider soul crushing, you know, where people sort of wither and die on the inside, but they just keep existing. That's the place I was. That's the edge that I was teetering on right there. But for some reason, despite my youth and my complete ignorance, I chose to nurture resilience. Now, I didn't know I was doing that, but now when I look back, I realize that's what I was doing. So every night I found myself in my closet, sitting in the floor of my closet, crying my eyes out, and giving voice to all the emotion, all that pain and hurt and despair that I was feeling. I was giving voice to it. And then there'd be a moment in there that something in me would shift and I would pick up my journal, pick up my pen, and with some serious force and determination, start writing out who I felt I really was. So it's things like, I will not be defeated. My life does matter. I have an assignment and I will fulfill it despite all this unexpected, difficult climate I'm living in. You know, I choose to absorb these words, or I choose not to absorb those unflattering thoughts or words about myself, lots of them coming from my own head. and that I didn't realize was a practice. It was happening. I'm going to say it was divinely inspired because I wasn't smart enough to figure out to do that. But then I'd find myself on the floor of my closet the very next night doing the same thing with a Kleenex box, you know, and expressing the hurt and the pain, but then choosing to absorb these absolute truths that were creating in me resilience and a strong mindset. I didn't realize I was building that strong mindset, but what was happening and what the pattern is, what the habit now is embrace the emotion. Don't ignore it. Don't push it down. Don't act like it's not there. Embrace it. And then be intentional about the language I used about who I was. So those were two practices. Object to the hurtful, destructive words being said in my own head or from others, and then declare truths about who I am. So I want you to think just for a minute about words in your own life. I mean, which ones nurture resilience and which ones don't? Which ones are helpful and which are hurtful? Which ones are true? Which ones aren't? What words do you want to object to, and what words do you want to declare? I just feel like language is a big piece of this strong mindset, or thoughts, language, thoughts. So I'm going to get quiet for half a second here. Let you just think about the words in your life. What do you want to object to? What do you want to declare? Now, fast forward a few decades from that moment in my closet, and I can tell you that I no longer have to cry. I no longer have so much pain and hurt that I'm debilitated. It rolls off my back a lot faster now because I've been practicing it for decades. But what I do have in my closet are 3 lists, literally taped to a shelf in my closet. Every list starts with I declare and ends with this is who I am. I declare this is who I am. I declare this is who I am. Each list is a little different, but on it, there are things like crafted with the capacity to empower, designed as a perspective adjuster, appointed as the ambassador of mindful mindsets, commissioned with the power of resilience, and the lists go on. This is who I am. So now, every day in my closet, I am incredibly intentional about declaring the truth about who I am, because I know I need a strong mindset to move through the day. So those are, I realize that was a story, but those are the practices and habits that have really built a strong mindset in me.
Oh, that's a great idea. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Nikki, what about you? What practices or habits have been most instrumental in helping you build a strong mindset?
Michelle, that was beautiful. I can't wait to do some of that. When I think about when I started my healing journey, I didn't grow up like you, Michelle. Mine was just the opposite. My family uh, was challenging for me, but I realize now that it was a gift. Um, I've learned to turn that pain that I experienced growing up into my purpose. And so I understand now why I went through a lot of things that I went through, because now I'm so knowledgeable, and not only do I heal myself, but I think I help others heal as well. I think the biggest thing for me is the responsibility piece. And that shifted my whole perspective when it came to my life. I was living most of my life in a victim mindset. So, being in that victim mindset, I didn't know how to get out. It was like I was in the mud and didn't know how to get out of it. And I spent several years there. Even part of my adult life, I was still in the mud, and I felt like this is all. This is it. This is what I have. This is the way I'm going to think for the rest of my life. Until I picked up a book titled The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. In that book, he talks about the first page of that book. He talks about the power of taking responsibility. And he says, if you want to create the life that you want, you first have to take 100% responsibility for everything that's happened to you. That was really hard to think about, because when we think about responsibility, we think it's fault, but it's not. It is saying that this is my life, therefore it's up to me to do something about it. And reading that page just transformed everything for me, because I realized I was stuck because I had been blaming my parents, blaming my upbringing. And once I took responsibility for those things, I could move. And things just started to shift in my life just by making that one change. And it's not to say that we're all going to experience that victim mindset sometimes, and or anger, or frustration, or whatever those low level energies are. We're going to experience that. But for the most part, I understand that this too shall pass, and I can move through that. And as long as I'm able to take responsibility, I can get things done, and take control over the situation and how I choose to respond to the things in my life that I don't like.
I was gonna type the name of that book into the chat for you guys. It's The Success Principles by
Jack
Jack.
of the chicken soup books.
By Jack Canfield. There it is in the group. Typing and talking at the same time. Thank you for that. Gail, I've another question for you. How can we support one another in fostering our strong mindsets within our own circles?
I love that question. And by the way, Michelle and Nikki, beautiful, beautiful practical things that we can do to advance this mindset, upgrade the mindset. How do we help one another? I think this is a perfect example of how we help one another. A big word for me in the last few years has been community, coming together in a community. And community is just a gathering of like-minded people. And like-minded to me just means you're on the path and going for the same thing, each going for personal upgrade and personal mindset, and we're doing it together. To me, there's no such thing as the Lone Ranger kind of getting there. Even the Lone Ranger had, he had Tonto and he had a horse. And many of us, especially as women, when we've been in situations where it just seems like nobody knows, nobody cares, we just decide we're going to power our way through it, and that never works. So coming together and finding like-minded people that we can meet with and talk with, it doesn't have to be necessarily a counselor or a coach. It can just be another person who will listen. And one of my favorite coaches in the past believed in this thing he called the triad. He believed that 3 people get together on a regular basis with the purpose of empowering and encouraging and uplifting one another. And you just find a group. It could be 4, but he said no more than 4 people that you can just talk with. And this is the progress that I've made since the last time. This is where I want to go. These are the failures. Someone to help us turn those failures into learning, because as long as we're learning, then we really haven't failed. And I will never forget that. And I continually look for the 3 people in my life. Usually I find a person and say, I'm following you wherever you go. And you know what? That has worked.
Nice. And I hope you guys are taking notes. This has been great. It's been a rich list of possible action steps that we can all take. So I have one more question for Michelle. Is there anything you would add to the discussion today?
That's a big question. First of all, I love everything that Nikki and Gail have said. And so adding to it would be probably futile on my part, but I'm going to try. They've used the word victim mentality a few times. And what pops into my head when I hear victim mentality is, how do I know? Because when I'm in a victim mentality, I don't know. I mean, how do I know? And, Nikki was saying the book, which that is a fantastic book. That was one of the first ones I read that got me moving forward. How do I know? Well, there are 3 things that I have discovered over time that have put me where I'm choosing the victim mentality. And of course, we're not talking about if you're victimized. We're talking about if you're choosing a victim mentality. But there are 3 things that really will shine a light on it for you. One is, are you blaming?
Mm-hmm.
Are you complaining? Are you self-justifying? Now, when I first kind of came across these, I thought, I probably don't need to journal about those because I'm not doing those things. I don't have victim mentality. But just to be sure, I'll go ahead and start paying attention and write in my journal if I complained or blamed or self-justified. I could not believe it. Most of it wasn't coming out of my mouth. I would stop the blaming, the complaining, the self-justifying before it came out of my mouth, but it was all swirling in here. And so I really would challenge you, take those three things, blaming, complaining, self-justifying, and just make yourself go through 10 days looking to see if you're doing these things. If you are, you're falling into a victim mentality, which is counterproductive to building a strong mentality. So that would be one thing I would just kind of, something I've learned over the years. But I want to pause, since Carol gave me the stage. I want to pause right here and ask you guys, those of you who have heard this conversation so far, you're listening in, what have you heard that you are actually going to take action on? Like, I would like everyone to give us one action step you're going to take because you heard this conversation. Some of you who are bold enough, turn your video on and your mic on and tell us what your action step is. Those of you who would rather just put it in the chat, that is perfectly fine. Put it in the chat. Remember, Carol told you at the beginning that there were some giveaways that were coming to people that engaged. So we're just incentivizing you just a little bit, okay? So tell me, what action step will you take based on what you've heard today? And I'm real good with awkward silence, so I'll just wait until you start answering.
What are we giving away for this one, Michelle?
Oh, I don't know. I know we have a couple of Nikki's books. Nikki, do you have them? Okay. Yes, I actually have those right here too. A couple of Nikki's books are in the mix, and you might get those. We'll let you know when we're finished here. And then a ticket to a Plaid Impact lunch, either in downtown Fort Worth or South Arlington, if you're local. So tell us what your action steps are, and if you want to unmute your mic and turn on your video, we're happy to hear from you. But otherwise, stick it in the chat. Ruby.
Yes, one of the things that in listening to the whole mindset really makes me think more about my mindset. I do a vision board every year, and my vision board, I have one word, and my word for this year was reset. And then I start putting in front of everything. So with this, I want to reshift my mindset. So that's, and the action points would be, what steps do I need to go through to reset my mindset? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I like it. And having it visual, having it right in front of you keeps it.
Yes. I put it right over my desk, so I'm looking at it every day.
Love that. Stephanie Budahan says, use affirmations and watch how I talk to myself. Love it. Amy, I think, is it Amy? I'm lost. Yeah, Amy says self-evaluating on how often she blames versus takes responsibility. Christina talks about speaking to herself, motivational speak to herself on a daily basis. Man, getting in these habits where we're doing it regularly instead of, once a quarter, daily basis to promote the positive progress. Michelle talks about journaling and getting the junk out of her head. I have two different journals. One I literally call a junk journal, which I'm writing in a completely different handwriting because I'm usually just and I'm getting all the junk out of my head that I know is not supporting and helpful and moving me forward. I don't ever go back and reread those journals versus the journal that I'm writing good stuff. Here's all the action steps here. But I love that, Michelle. Taffy, mindfulness and monitoring your inner monitor. One of the ways I say that, and it might be in Jack Canfield's book, going from an inner critic to an inner coach. He has a whole chapter on that. Great idea. Love that, Taffy. Tasha, creating a vision statement of who you want to be and then create those declaration statements that I was talking about. Those are powerful, y'all. I like that, Cheryl, where you wrote and just expressed it all, the emotion, expressed everything in it. And there's something about getting things out on paper that shifts what's happening in your brain. It's like you gave yourself a space to put it. Nikki, what would you add in the middle of all those comments?
Wow, those are some great comments. I think, um, hmm, I think someone mentioned who was that? Ruby, that reset,
Mhm.
reframe. And reframing is simply taking something that we perceive as negative and looking for the learning in it, not necessarily something positive, but what am I learning from this experience? That's basically what my book that I'm going to give away is about. It's called The Beauty Underneath the Struggle, Creating Your Bust Story. So I took a lot of the struggles that I experienced growing up and changed the story. You know, like I said, I grew up in a toxic family. I used to say that my parents didn't love me. Well, I had to change that to it wasn't that they didn't love me, but they didn't know how to love themselves. And so they did the best they could with what they had. And that made me just feel so much calmer than my parents don't love me. Right. So I guess another you could add is reframing.
Love that. That's really good. Thanks, Nikki. Gail, do you want to add one more? What would be another comment you would have before we move everybody back to work?
Well, first, ladies, great job, great job. Two things I would that resonate with me. Begin writing things down and creating vision boards is a way to make the life you want a reality. That's the first step, because if it's in writing, it now is tangible, it's visible, and it starts to be real rather than just something in our heads. And so I love that. And I want to throw out a word for the victim thing. I teach a class at Christian Women's Job Corps called Boundaries. I know you've heard of that, and this is straight from Townsend and Cloud. And in the end, the one word that we get out of our vocabulary is they. They is a 4-letter word, literally. But, you know, when we're thinking through setting good boundaries, it's about me and I. And a lot of times where with the students, especially at the beginning, will come back and say, well, I tried to set a boundary, but they, and we soon learn, everyone in the class, that if anyone says they, that can't use the word they, because what you really want to say, you want to keep it on what you're doing, how it's impacting you, what you've learned from it, what you've gained from it, and what you're going to do next. And so they throw that word out.
That goes back to that responsibility piece.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Thanks. Carol, I hijacked everything, so now I'm going to pass it back to you. You're not surprised.
No, that was great. And as much as, you know, I may be, the word just left my brain, maybe leading this discussion, I get so much out of it as well. And I love it. I love the declare and the rejection of things that aren't true that people or others or yourself can put into your brain. And I love that, to get what is true in your brain and carry that, because it does change your mindset, even in those hard times when you're being, when you're in situations that are difficult. It just changes how you respond to them. And I love just all the encouragement of mindset here. So we could talk about this for a long time, but you know, our time is short today. So does anybody have any questions that they want to ask our panelists today? We have time for a question from you guys. If you want to type it in the chat, or you want to unmute and ask yourself, let us know who you're asking. And are there any questions? I also noticed Cheryl just put in the comments that you can make a comfortable living space around you with pets or candles or lights and flowers, whatever. And that definitely helps boost you in times of dealing with things in your head and shifting that mindset.
So I'd love to ask a question to those of you who are here, all of you. This is not for the panelists, this is for everyone. You have strategies I know that you've used to build a strong mindset. So either unmute yourself and share them with us or stick them in the chat. We'd like to hear from everyone. We know everyone's bringing some experience, wisdom, even struggle to the conversation. So what are some things that haven't been said today that are good strategies for building a strong mindset? What comes to mind?
One of the things I think about is having the right group of people around you and having the right, I don't know, board of directors, trusted advocates, whatever, who can actually kind of help you get out of the brain swirl that I am writing about, that I need to get it out of my head. I think for me, that has probably helped me move forward just in my thinking, because I wouldn't even necessarily catch myself doing it. Yeah. But as I shared with my friends, like, you know, I would get down on something or whatever, they would catch me. So I think it's important to have the right people around you.
Good.
Stephanie has said, I had an aha moment when I realized that I would never talk to one of my friends the way that I sometimes talk to myself. And that helped me be kinder to myself. That's good. Except that some people will never be able to reach your level of understanding. That was from Cheryl. And Amy said self-care. Make yourself a priority.
All good.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, sometimes I have to get myself in another environment. I often will go walk in the park or go for a long walk and just kind of really rehearse or rethink the things that I've been thinking or the things that were bothering me. Journaling helps, but sometimes I just have to take myself out. And then that helps me to shift and then come back.
That's awesome, Ruby. I was just thinking that for me, the outdoors is magical. If I can get outside, take that walk outdoors, there's something about sunshine and nature that just helps clear things. That's awesome. Ooh, Cheryl writes music. That's another good one, Cheryl. Anybody else have an answer for that question? It's just strategies we haven't mentioned yet. Thank y'all for participating in that. I'll pass it back to you, Carol.
All right. Well, thank you, Nikki and Gail and Michelle for this. This has been really great. I've enjoyed this and I hope everyone else has too. So as we wrap it up, if you're feeling stuck and you simply want to focus on developing a stronger mindset in 2025, Plaid does have an e-course. It's the ultimate mindset makeover for success. This course is your path to a transformative mindset and unlocking your full potential. You can find out more on the plaidforwomen.com website. It's at the top right corner of the homepage. It's just under the information about today's panel discussion. You can click on that graphic and it'll take you to an information page where you can find out more about it. So that's what everybody's got. Thank you for joining us today, and I hope you have a good afternoon.
Are we going to announce winners, or?
I think we're going to put a drawing in and we'll reach out to each one of them after this. We have email addresses and we'll reach out through email.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for asking about that, Gail. Thank y'all. It's great to be here.
Thank you.